Afternoon, folks, and welcome to the Podium Create Applications for Trust webinar. My name is Paula, one of the 3 Podium trainers, and I will be your facilitator today. To the folks who've just joined on the line, I have already done an audio and visual check, so hopefully you can see my screen that is titled Podium Create Applications for Trust webinar, and you can also hear my voice. If you do have any issues throughout this webinar, I suggest that you close your GoToWebinar link and restart again from the original email that was sent to you. Alternatively, if you are having dire problems getting in today, folks, do not stress. The webinar will be recorded, so you will be able to see it at a later time if need be. I'm conscious of time, folks, and the amount of material that I want to share with you today. So we're going to kick off and let the rest of our colleagues join throughout the next couple of minutes. So let's go through what we have in store for you today. Just a couple of reminders, folks. Now, today you will be seeing a test environment. So it will be my training test environment. And just to let everyone know that regardless if you are with Plan, Choice or Fast, you will have the same functionality. Also wanted to highlight the fact, folks, that today's webinar is about the processing of trust applications in Podium. Not strictly a compliance session. I will leave that to my colleagues from the Broker Advice Consultancy team. So again, another general disclaimer that we're not focusing purely on compliance. There will be elements in there as well as good handy tips and strategic ways of dealing with trust applications, but it's not purely compliance based. Also with my second balloon on the screen, folks, please, if you do have any questions, please send them through the question or the chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen. I will try to answer most of the questions that we received today. If I don't get to all of them, you will receive a frequently asked question sheet by the end of the month. So that will be for the questions that I don't tick off today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, folks, is I'm actually going to run a poll. I'd like to get a feel for how many of you good folk on the line have actually processed a trust application in Podium before. So let me kick off the poll itself. So 1 second. Okay, I'll just give a couple of extra seconds to complete the poll. Okay. Overwhelming response, folks. I can see that 30% of you have completed a trust application before. Fantastic. So if you are able to offer any tips that I haven't covered, please feel free to send that through to me and I'll share them with the rest of our audience. An overwhelming response that 70% of us have not processed trust applications before. So you are definitely in the right place. We're going to give you a combination of good tips and good plans for getting a trust application through to a process checklist. So that's what we think of as business as usual. So fantastic. Thank you for completing that poll, folks. So let's continue with the rest of the webinar. So big plan for today, folks. So what I'm going to be showing. So today's goals set up into 3 very clear sessions or 3 clear parts. The first goal of today is to give you some instruction and some idea of what are good things to check before you start a trust application. In particular, we're going to spend a bit of time on recognising trust structures and how to work with the structure itself. We're also going to talk a little bit about verification documents because they are by and large with a trust application quite involved. Not difficult, there's just a lot of paperwork. We're also going to touch on product availability for this pool of specialised applications. If you can appreciate, folks, the amount of products available for trust applications are less than your standard residential applications for a PAYG income earner, or maybe a married couple making their first purchase as a joint application. So there's a very big difference in the amount of products or the size of a pool of products for trust applications. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the expertise. Where do you go to? Sometimes when it comes to trust applications, it actually pays to do your homework beforehand so that you are prepared for what you need to do as a part of the process itself. Part 2, folks, we're going to introduce or use a case study to enter a trust application up to the process checklist stage. And that case study is going to be based around a lovely family called the Polton, so the Polton family. In the second part of today's webinar, we're going to learn how to enter different trust parties into Podium. We're then going to learn how to correctly connect the parties that are involved with that trust application within Podium as well. So in account connections, if in fact we're using self-employed income or companies, you need to be able to connect your directors, the company secretary, your employees. So we're going to show you how to do that as well. We're also going to have a look at income in particular for trust parties. And again, depending on what income type you have, the income section can be quite simple or quite difficult, depending on what information you have and what the structure is. So that's going to be the bulk of our system learning in Podium. Is going to be around that area for the case study for meeting the Poltons. We're going to wrap the day off with support. You need to know where to go to get help with your trust applications. We have some information readily available on Podium Knowledge Hub. I'd like to take the opportunity to show you exactly where you can locate that, and also to put you in connections with the right people. And we're talking about lender credit teams, or in particular, business development managers from lenders. So we'll show you how to connect with those BDMs as well. Busy day, folks, so we've taken up the 5 minutes already for introducing housekeeping and agenda. We'll spend about 30 minutes on the first section before you start. I'll then introduce you to the Polton's case scenario. We're then going to have a 5-minute break because it's a big chunk of learning. We're going to jump straight back in and do all of the party creation and connection, so the second part of today's webinar. We'll have another break because that's another big chunk of learning, and we'll wrap the session off with reinforcing where you go to for support, and we'll also show you what the next steps will be. Okay, so before I go any further, I'm just going to double check if anyone has any questions. Okay, for the folks on the line, so you're absolutely correct. You are automatically muted by me, so that actually stops too many people talking over the line at the same time. I will not invite you to speak as a part of today's webinar. I will invite you to send questions through, which I'm happy to answer, but being muted by the organiser is absolutely correct. You might want to check on your end if the mute on your computer itself is muted. So you might need to flick that on in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay. Okay, now I've got a couple of other questions, and I'm going to say most of them will get answered throughout today. We have a specific request for a self-managed super fund loan that's not contained in today's webinar. So if in fact that was the reason why we're tuning in today, then I can gladly give you back an hour and a half in your day. We will not be covering SMSF, self-managed super fund loans, in today's trust application. You can keep an eye out for when that topic will come up, but it is a specialised area. Okay, folks, let's get into the webinar itself and let's kick off with before you start. Okay, so the first part that we need to talk about, folks, is knowing your customer. Absolutely imperative at all times, even more so when you're dealing with trust applications. And what you need to be able to do is to identify very clearly who are the trust parties, who make up the trust. So you're going to be looking at things like who is the trustee, who is the guarantor, who are the beneficiaries, what type of income sources do they have, is there any complexity? Do any of your parties have self-employed income as a part of their earnings, etc., etc. You may also need to identify what type of trust it is in particular. 95% of the applications that come through Podium are family or discretionary trust. We do have the ability to process hybrid trust applications, folks, but it is quite complex and it's not something that I will cover in great deal here, but we can certainly accommodate that if we need to. One of the common calls that I've had about this infamous relationship chart is exactly what is a trust relationship chart, Paula. So it's very simple. I'm going to actually give you a very quick demonstration. It can be as simple as a bit of paper that you've scribbled on everyone's names and which role they have in it. You then take a photo of that little scribbly bit of paper or your handwritten source, and then you can upload it to the client file when it's appropriate. Alternatively, I'm going to show you how you can actually create that same relationship chart in a simple Word document. So I'm just going to open up my Word document here. So very basic Word document. I'm going to give it a title. So I'm going to call it the ABC Family Trust Relationship Chart. Relation, spell properly, Paula. Relationship chart. So I'm going to give it a title first and foremost. Just make it a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. That's what it is. Nice and easy. One of the quickest ways that I've found to create a relationship chart with a Word document is inserting what's called Smart Art. So I go up to the Insert button. I click on Smart Art here. I then choose the hierarchy example on the left-hand side here that I've clicked on. So I'll just go through that again. I'm in a simple Word document. I've given my trust relationship chart a title. I've then gone to Insert. I then go to Smart Art, and I want to choose Hierarchy. In my hierarchy, I personally prefer this format here, so I'm going to choose that one, and I'm going to click OK. So it automatically populates with a chart, a relationship chart, or a hierarchy chart that I can identify with. So what I can now do is actually start entering in what is or what are the different parties. So I'm going to start with the family trust itself. And we'll call it, the ABC Family Trust. I'm then going to start identifying who my parties are. So I would like to identify who my trustee is. At this point, I'm going to keep it nice and simple. Now, if I don't want any of the boxes that are here, I click on it and I can either click on the backspace or delete button. I'm going to do that again because at this stage I'm only going to have one trustee. So highlight the box and click delete or backspace. I also want to identify in my family trust that there is a guarantor. Now at this stage there's only going to be one guarantor, so I'm going to get rid of that box as well. So I just highlighted the box that was below and I click the delete or backspace button. And I also need to identify that I have beneficiaries. So I add another box to the right hand side by highlighting the box to start with, right clicking, and I click on add shape. I'll just go through that again. If I want to add another relationship or another part of this puzzle, I click on this box, right click, add shape. I'm going to add a shape after, and now I can add my beneficiaries. Now at this stage I'm going to show you how you can add multiples of things. So if I wanted to add 2 beneficiaries, I'd follow the same process, highlight that particular box, I click on the box, right click, and I add a shape, and this time I'm going down. So that can be beneficiary number 1. If I want to add more, I would repeat that process. So click on the box, right click, add shape below. So that's beneficiary number 2. Now, in a real life scenario, folks, underneath all of these titles, you would have names. At this stage, I'm simply showing you how you can create one. So with regards to a relationship chart, data, nice and simple, real easy, but very effective. And you will be surprised at how much you return to this original relationship chart so that you can make sure that everyone is included. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to save this file to my desktop for the time being, with the intention of uploading it as a document as a part of my application. So I'm just going to save it to my desktop. So however you would save to your desktop, folks, you can just do that. I'm going to add mine to my desktop here, and I'm going to call it the ABC Family Trust. ABC Family Trust. Boom. That's that done. So I'm going to close that document now, but it will be on my desktop. So I'll just show you exactly where that is on my desktop. So I've got it right over here. The ABC Family Trust document. So we're going to come back to that at a later stage. So let's jump back into the PowerPoint presentation itself. So knowing your customer, absolutely important, absolutely vital. Identifying the trust parties, who they are, creating a trust relationship chart, and then uploading and saving that document to the trust client record when we actually get there. So at the moment, it's just sitting on my desktop. The next point that we want to go through when it comes to preparing for a trust application is to know your Veros, to know your verification documents, because there is indeed a fair chunk of them. Now, what I'm going to do, folks, is actually just go through a number of the general documents that we would look at. I'm not going to go through every single possible one that you could potentially need to supply, but I'm going to highlight what are going to be the more common documents that you would need. So let's kick off with the investment document. So if you're making an investment loan proposal, you will determine whether or not the rental income is going to be a proposed rental income, or if in fact it is actual income. So you're going to start looking at things like your real estate property details. You may also need to make contact with a property manager for the property that you're looking at. If in fact you've got existing tenants, whether or not you have access to a current lease agreement. So again, here are just general documents that you would need as a part of an investment loan for property. Yeah, again, many other types of documents that you could potentially need, but I'm just going to highlight a couple. The next section that we have for trusts. So as soon as you mention the word trust, there's a couple of documents that you need straight away. First and foremost, the trust deed. You definitely need to obtain a copy of the trust deed, the trust share certificate, and the trust tax return. Okay, next section I've got, if in fact the members or the parties that make up your trust, if they're PAYG income earners, you may need to look at things like, well, you'll definitely need to look at things like pay slips or bank statements, or potentially an employment contract. Pay slips and bank statements are generally the easier to obtain for our PAYG customers who are part of a trust application. But what if one of your parties is self-employed? Well, then you're going to need verification of their Australian business number, including the registration date. Self-employed income generally requires 2 years worth of income, so you're going to need 2 years worth of income tax returns. and potentially you may have to look at personal transaction accounts as well. Just highlighting again the amount of verification documents that are related to a trust application. What if one of the trust parties is a company? Then there's another level of verification documents that you're going to need. You're going to need the ABN number, the ACN number, so that would be the Australian business number, and the Australian company number, your registration details. So some lenders may indeed request more than your standard ABN and ACN documents. You'll more than likely need to provide both the articles and the memorandums of association. So these are the two key documents as a part of a company that, one, tell you who are the shareholders, that's in the articles of association, and then what those shareholders, what their roles, in particular what their liability is for the memorandum of association. And just like with your self-employed income earner, you'll also need to provide tax returns, and they will be company tax returns specifically. So yeah, so as you can see straight away with just this one slide, the amount of verification documents in connection with a trust application, it really does depend on the complexity. For a standard mum and dad family trust where it's all PAYG income, then you'd probably just need to look at the top three. If in fact those parties start having different income sources or different roles, then the amount of verification documents will increase. I'm just going to take a step there, folks, and my apologies, I did not mention this earlier. Please do not write anything down ferociously as I'm skimming through the slides, folks. You will receive a copy of this PowerPoint presentation. So if you're on the screen in particular trying to jot it all down, you don't need to. You will get a copy of it. Also a good time for me to check to see if there are any questions at this stage. So I'm just going to have a look. Okay, just a couple of questions around rental. What's the difference between proposed and actual rental? So if in fact the property that you're intending to purchase currently has tenants in it and they intend to stay, then that will be actual rental. If you're buying a property with intention of preparing it for potential renters, then that would be proposed rental income. What is the trust share certificate? So that is your standard piece of trust. So when the trust registers itself, it will need to provide a number of different trust specific documents, including the trust share certificate. By definition, the share certificate will determine the proportion for each. Actually, I might take that offline actually, folks, because then that's going to go into the following question as well. Sue, who sent me questions about both the trust share certificate, the articles, the memorandum of association. Yes, I will take that offline. It may mean that you need to do a little bit of research your own on what are the basic structures and requirements. And we're talking about legal requirements. So under ASIC, to be registered as a trust, you would be required to complete some other documents as well. So I'm going to leave that there very quickly. Cool. And again, another example with a specific scenario in mind, we're highly unlikely to have taxation returns. Yep, given point, absolutely. So a specific question again, I'm happy to take that question offline as well. Yes. Okay, so we've got a wonderful array of questions coming through. So you can expect a very healthy, frequently asked questions sheet by the end of today's session, folks, to be sent out to you by the end of the month. Let's go with what we have, folks. So we haven't even started a trust application in Podium yet. I absolutely acknowledge that I am not covering every possible scenario a trust application may throw at you in the real world, but I'm hoping to provide you with what I would gladly coin as being the majority of applications, not every single one, but we'll be aiming to probably cover what most applications, that's 70 to 75% of applications would require. But thank you for your expertise, for the comments that are coming through. Okay, let's go on to the next stage of before you start. So before you start, make sure that you know who makes up the trust. Prepare yourself a relationship chart. Next point, know your verification. So you're going to need an amount of verification, and depending on the structure, how much you need to provide will vary application to application. Next slide that I have for you is all about knowing your products. Now, in particular, it's really important to note, folks, and for those folks on the line who work with trust applications already, you will absolutely know that the amount of products available to you to process a trust application is significantly reduced from your standard residential applications with PAYG income earners or no trust parties involved. They generally will attract a higher interest rate, and they will generally have other features that are limited, which means that you need to know a little bit about your product. So what I'm hoping to show you in the next 5 to 10 minutes is how you can identify those products. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a live demonstration. We're going to Podium now, and we're going to show you how to set your favorites to bring back investment products that are right there. So let's jump into the live system. Perfect. Now that everyone can see my screen, I'm going to give you a very quick I'm going to give you very quick and clear instructions on where to go and set your favorites for product search. You start on the left sidebar menu, go to the More tab. I'm then going to scroll across, and in Broker Tools, I'm going to go down to the Product Search button here. Click on Product Search. When Product Search comes to the, when I'm logged in, because I was logged out for a little while. So what will happen when the product screen comes through, folks, is that I'll show you how to set your favorites so that you can go to an investment product straight away. 1 second. That's much better. Now, where was I? Product search. So I went to the left sidebar menu. I clicked on the More tab. I then went to the product search hyperlink. I'm now in the product search field on my screen right now. Now, at the moment, I've got my favorite already loaded as being from particular lenders that I like. So I have selected 4 in particular. I have it set with the properties for investment, my repayment time, your specific state, folks. If you are in Queensland, Perth, New South Wales, please change your state. I've chosen to elect a variable interest rate, and I've also included a split loan functionality. Now, how I set that, folks, is under here with the favorite search button. If I click on favorite search, so down here I have my default. If I click on the drop down arrow, folks, you'll see, let me see if I can increase my screen for you. I can change my favorite search. So if I was to click on the investor standard default button, I'll do that again. I'm on the product search page. I scroll across to favorite search. I go to the drop down box and I click on investor. I then set the parameters in these different fields that I've highlighted. Once I'm satisfied, if I want to have more or less lenders, I can then click Save. So as you can see here, I've already got it as my save search, but if it's the first time that you've created your favorite search, all you have to do is click the Save button. Okay, then we're going to click the Search button. And the search is now going to provide you with investment loans that meet the fields of criteria that you've set based on the lenders that you've selected. So I'm going to scroll down. Now, the 4 lenders that I've selected today, folks, for today's demonstration are the 4 big banks, so ANZ, Commonwealth Bank, NAB, and Westpac. So I am now scrolling down and I can see a number of investment loans that are offered by ANZ, Commonwealth Bank, NAB, and Westpac. So depending on your lender selection, folks, and the caveat with that, folks, is of course you have to be accredited to be able to select the lenders that you wish. There's nothing stopping you from looking at the data. Your compliance models will determine if you can converse or start connecting with those particular lenders. But purely for looking, based on your selections, you will get a variety of different investment products. So that was point number 1 that I wanted to show. So as you can see, there's not a lot of products, not compared to a standard owner-occupied selection. With ANZ, based on my filters, I've got 6 products that I could potentially use. Commonwealth Bank, I have 5. NAB, I have 6. And with Westpac, I also have 5. So again, the pool size for trust applications is narrowed. What I then want to show you, folks, is that by going into a product itself, and I'm going to use a ANZ product purely as an example, and I'm going to choose the standard variable interest only investment loan as an example. So I'm going to open up the product and I'm going to actually check out what the features and benefits, what the fees and charges, because there's a lot of detail in the product itself, which will give you instructions on how you can or cannot process your trust application. So let's kick off with features and benefits. So in features and benefits, if I start scrolling down, the page, I start to see at the very bottom, okay, so we have, it's an available product for guarantor, great, maximum LVR 80%. Borrowers, so we can have companies borrowing and trusts borrowing as well, fantastic. Standard LVRs, product policy applied, wonderful. Ooh, here's a condition. So underneath the ANZ product itself, when it comes to trusts as borrowers, the comment, trust deeds to be vetted prior to unconditional approval by borrower's solicitor or ANZ solicitor, family unit and hybrid. So this is an instruction in relation to a trust application being successful with this particular product. So again, highlighting that a bit of product knowledge, what you need to do or what criteria you must meet is going to be handy for you. So in this particular product, looks like I'm going to have to make contact beforehand. Okay, so it needs to be vetted. Let's go along again. Let's have a look at fees and charges. So if I scroll down, okay, that looks pretty standard. The fees are pretty standard. If I go down, annual fee, nothing. Okay, there's a guarantor fee. So if in fact I use a trust application with a guarantor, there is an additional $200 fee. Also another good thing to know. What do we have here? Production fees. Again, another example that by looking and knowing your products and knowing the different features and charges, you're going to get some background information as to how successful your trust application is going to be. The one other section that I want to check, I'm just going to double check the loan details as well. Okay, so loan details, minimum loan. Okay, so there's no maximum loan, but I need to refer to the BDM. Okay, so that's probably in conjunction with the other comment and features and benefits about the trust needing to be vetted. I'm pretty confident that I would want to make contact with a business development manager who is part of the lender, ANZ, before I actually process or got some background information about how successful my trust application is going to be. And that's a lot of information all from the product search screen, folks. And in relation to trust applications, you probably just saved yourself potentially hours, if not days, worth of work and research by finding out what the parameters are. So that would probably be a really big tip or a really big gift of time to save you time. Start to learn about the products. What are their features and benefits? Are there any extra charges associated with the trust application? What are the loan details? What do I have to do? Okay, so back into the PowerPoint presentation, folks. That kind of highlights precisely what I wanted to show you today in knowing your products. I'm definitely appreciating that the number of the pool size is a lot smaller. Having access to products that you know are available, so having it as a favorite search is also very helpful, and your research or knowledge of each product. Okay, now the last start, or before you start, so this is the last general tip that I'm going to give, and then we're going to meet the Polton family. So knowing the expert, so knowing your expert is utilising the resources that you already have. If you're part of an organisation where you already have a trust guru who does trust applications from 9 to 5 every day, then that is probably your best source. That is your best source of knowledge, and definitely your best source for making contact with appropriate lenders with the best product or the best trust product in mind. Aggregators, there are some incredibly talented and knowledgeable partnership managers within our midst who have a wealth of trust knowledge that they can also impart to you. So please do not hesitate to reach out to your aggregator specialist as well. Also want to highlight within Podium itself that you've got some experts and some knowledge available here as well. So I'm actually going to show you in the live system where to find it. So if we're talking or starting with Podium Knowledge Hub, I'm just going to jump in there now. Okay, so welcome to Podium Knowledge Hub. Hopefully everyone on the line has seen Podium Knowledge Hub before. So this is our home page. Now I'm going to type in 2 keywords. My first word is going to be trust. My second word is going to be steps or step. You choose. When I click on the enter button or click the search magnifying glass on the right hand side, I'm going to come back with trust articles in the database right now. So here's another great preparation tool to let you know of what the steps are involved getting your trust application through Podium itself. Now as listed here, you've got how to set up a trust. Okay, so there's 6 different steps. If I just want direction on a particular step, I could click on any one of these. But if I want to see all of it together, so I want to do steps 1 to 6, so I'm going to click on the top one here. So I click on the article title itself. Fantastic. I've got both instructions and screenshots. Perfect. So step 1. Okay. We're going to do this today, actually, folks, in the second half of today's webinar. But this particular part of the webinar is just to show you where you can go to actually help set up your trust application when the webinar is over. There's step number 2, pretty. Okay, here comes step number 3 and so forth. So that's the first Podium resource. This is Podium Knowledge Hub. The second resource that we'd like to highlight today, folks, is the Podium tool called WalkMe. So back into my Podium portal, I'm going to shut down my product search page. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, folks, we have what we call Walk Me Through. So I'm going to click on the Walk Me Through button. And I'm going to go in particular to guided experiences. When I click on guided experiences, when I scroll down to the very bottom of the page, and I do that by clicking on the sidebar and dragging it down to the very bottom, I can see here that I've got how to create a trust application. Oh, perfect. They are exactly like the articles that I've seen in Podium Knowledge Hub. So I can either go to Podium Knowledge Hub or I can come here to WalkMe. Wonderful. Let's keep moving on. So, Podium, straight away you've got Podium Knowledge Hub and Walk Me, and it's all about those 6-step folks to get you set up with your trust application with all the parties in the right area, your connections made correctly, and then you can go into business as usual, which is processing the application. And the final link or the final expert that I'm going to show is indeed going to be your BDM. So Paula, I noticed that your product search said refer to the BDM, but exactly how do I do that? So I'm going to show you how to do that, folks. Let's jump back into the live demonstration. So to find a BDM or a specific BDM, let's find a ANZ BDM in particular for the product that we just looked at. I'm going to go to the More tab on the left-hand side here, and I'm going to click on Lender Contacts. So I'll do that again. Left sidebar menu, the More tab. Under Support, I'm going to click on Lender Contacts. When I click on Lender Contacts, I'm going to get all of the lender contacts, not just ANZ, but all of them. So how can I make this a little bit easier on myself? And what I can do is I can select ANZ. Perfect. So how I select ANZ, I'm going to go up to the top left-hand corner here in Lender Contacts. I'm going to click on the drop-down box, and I'm going to select ANZ. Now, because I've looked at this list before, folks, it is appearing at the very top. In your particular screen, if you haven't looked at ANZ before in the lender contacts, you'll find them here under all other lists, and you should find them just after AMP Bank and before Arch Finance. Once you've found ANZ, click on ANZ itself, and all of the ANZ lender contacts are going to come through. Now that's good. It's definitely better than what it was before, but I think we can make it a little bit easier to find your BDM. So what we are going to do, folks, is that we are going to create a My ANZ BDM list. How you do that, folks, is we're going to go to this cog wheel over here, or your settings. So scroll across to the right-hand side. In the cog wheel, I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow, and I'm going to select Clone. Okay, I'll do that again. I'm in ANZ. I scroll across to the cog wheel, and I select Clone. When I select Clone, it's Clone, it's going to ask me to give this new list a title. I'm going to call this My ANZ BDM list. So I'm going to call it My ANZ BDM list, and then I'm going to click Save. So it is now My ANZ BDM list. I want to filter it a little bit better so I can only see ANZ BDMs. I do that by adding another filter. So I scroll across to the right-hand side, come down to Add Filter, click on Add Filter, my field. So I want to find people in ANZ with a position title of BDM. So the field is position title. Scroll down to position title. The operator needs to equal, and the value or the position I want it to search for is BDM. I then click on Done. I'll do that again, folks, just in case we're just 1 second or 2 seconds behind. So I clicked on the Add Filter button. I changed my field to position title. Operator equals, value is BDM. I'm then going to click Done. And then I'm going to click Save. When I click Save, my very big list is going to be narrowed down to specifically ANZ credit people with the position of BDM only. So this is what this list is now showing me. great, I've got somewhere to start. I can now start making contact with a BDM. Okay. Now, if you want to keep this list all the time, you can pin it, which means that every time you go to lender contacts outside of the More tab, you will get this list. If you don't pin this list, all you need to do is to click on the drop-down arrow to find it, and it will be here. Okay, so that's how you search for a BDM, and then you can make contact either by phone or by email, completely up to you. Okay, so those are the before you start points that I want to reiterate, folks. So definitely before you start, know your customer. Who makes up the trust? Who are the parties? Create that relationship chart. Using a Microsoft Word document is very basic. If you've got something more complex, please feel free to do so, but please make a relationship chart. The second slide was about knowing your verification documents, and agreed, particularly with comments coming through. Depending on the complexity of your trust, you may or may not have a trust share certificate. I would certainly recommend getting a trust deed as a minimum, but also keeping in mind that if any parties are self-employed or company, that you may need income tax returns, company tax returns, ABN numbers. So that's knowing your Veros. The third part was about knowing your product. So by having that search, a favourite search with an investment product as a minimum is going to help you identify with which lenders how many products you can have a look at for a trust application. And then we had a really neat example of if we go into the product itself and we look at things like features and benefits, fees and charges and loan details, we actually get more information about the type of product that we could potentially offer our customers. The fourth and final part of before you start, folks, is about knowing your experts. So where do you go to? If you're part of a group, you've got a guru already, by all means use that person. Podium Knowledge Hub, we've got articles and WalkMe in the live environment. And also if you need to reach out to your lender BDMs, who are they and how do you contact them? Okay, the blue screen signifies it's a great time to have a break, folks. So I'm going to go quiet for just a minute or two while I check for questions. So I'm just going to pop myself on mute for a minute. Here's a great question and suggestion. With regards to product search, folks, shouldn't the advanced filters be used to select trust company borrowers so reduces the options further? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're aware of how to select more advanced features in product search, then by all means do so. By all means, I was purely giving the bare minimum. We've also got another great product search question here. Ooh, again, now that's a question that I cannot answer. Now, here is there a way to confirm on the Podium product search which banks will do deals involving a working trust? Most only deal with property trusts. You're absolutely right. No, the short answer is that type of advanced information about lender products specifically would be beyond what we have capability here in Podium. I'm just going through my mind if there is any products in particular that screen. There might be an ANZ, I think. Potentially, there may be one or two in Podium that does list who can work or who will accept a working trust as a party. I would recommend actually reaching out to a BDM. Most BDMs for any lender are interested in offering business or offering products with good business structures. So I think it's worth making contact with the BDM for a particular lender with a working trust. Okay, there are a few more folks, but I think I'm going to be able to answer those in the upcoming slides. So let's kick on. So far we've covered before you start. Now I'm going to introduce the scenario that we're going to use as a part of today's case study. So ladies and gentlemen, please meet the Poltons. So the Polton family. We have Steve Polton. He's 40 years of age, roofing specialist, 18 years, as you can see on the slide there. We also have Linda and 2 kids, Jack and Diane. What I can tell you folks about the Poltons is that they're high school sweethearts. They married early in their 20s and then came Jack and Diane. Steve is the main income earner. And Steve works for a company called Polton Roofing Services. Their trading name is Polton Roofing Pty Limited, started in 2012. So Steve's been the main income earner for his family, for his little family unit there. Looking at the age gaps here and when Linda joined the business as well, more than likely, Linda's looked after Jack and Diane through their preschool days. When Jack and Diane have been able to get to school, she's taken a more active part in the roofing business. So we had a roofing business started in 2002, 8 years later, and the timing with the children kind of makes sense. In that space of time, I can see if the family trust was started in 2010. So the kids are a little bit older. They're starting to have a think about potential futures. What can they do for the future? What I can also see here is that at the same time that the trust was established, there was the Polton Group Limited entity created as well, which is acting as the family trustee. Okay, so we have a Polton roofing business, which is separate to the Polton Group Limited. Very different, very separate. And we've also got the creation of the family trust itself. So, okay. So what can we read behind the lines? So we can see that Steve, okay, so he's been in business for around about 8 years before the trust was established. He's trialled both being a self-employed income earner and a PAYG. He's been PAYG since 2014. Okay, so let's learn a little bit more about this little family unit called the Poltons. Perfect. They're keeping it very well and truly in the family. So we have, fantastic. So Linda's mum, Megan. Now Linda's mum is the secretary for Polton Roofing Services. Perfect. And Lawrence, and that is Steve's dad, he's the accountant. So well and truly a family affair. Personally, I think they're both very smart. It would be silly not to take advantage of those types of family connections. Okay, so the Polton family, Steve's in his 40s. He's starting to have a think about retirement plans, or potentially his dad, who's the accountant, has given some fantastic advice on how to plan for those types of things through the family trust. So they're going to start looking at a first investment purchase. Great. So they've identified a property. Wonderful. It has existing renters with ongoing, still connected with a real estate agent. That is well done, Polton family. So we've got a pretty likely scenario based on many great things happening successively, succinctly as well. Admittedly, folks, it's a pretty perfect scenario where everything is going right for the family. Again, we acknowledge that not all business records and family trusts and businesses don't have that type of A to B type of journey. But for the purposes of learning today with Podium, this is a scenario that we're going to go with. So the Polton family. What else do we know about the Polton family? Okay, here's the ledger. Okay, so both Steve and Linda, they've got a pretty good income. Fantastic income, combined income. They own a home. So they have a owner-occupied home at 7 Sherman Court in Berwick. Okay, so it's an existing tailored home loan with ANZ. Okay, 20 years remaining. So they've gone through the first 10 years. Yeah, the assets look absolutely believable and realistic. You can see that super, yeah. Camry, 2014, 2017. Okay, so the assets definitely there. Liability, so we've got the ANZ home loan mortgage repayment. Okay, so that's the total ANZ credit. Expenses, okay. Household realistic, absolutely realistic. Travel, utilities, entertainment. Okay, so a zero figure for mobile devices and fuel, so that's absorbed by the business. Okay, and more than likely expecting new expenses with rates and water. Okay, pretty realistic financial ledger for a married couple with a business for 12 years underneath their belt, sorry, 18 years underneath their belt. So not a bad summary of what their financial position is. Let's go into the scenario a little bit further. Okay, so Polton Roofing Services Pty Limited from 2002. Okay. So Steve and Linda are both the directors and the shareholders. As mentioned before, Megan, that is Linda's mum, she's a secretary and she lives in Mount Arthur. Okay, so she's a local lady. Accountant, Lawrence, that is Steve's dad. Great, so we can start to begin to see, or we begin to see that some of the advice that they're getting with their financial movements are backed by a very good contact with a lot of experience and then pointing them in the right direction. It's a fantastic start. Okay, so we have a full-time employee. Okay, so full-time. Okay, so let's read a little about the Polton Roofing Services Pty Limited. Okay, so we've got a full-time employer, Matt. So when did you join? Now, as the story goes, so the hard graft of the business was in the first 5 years, and then Matt joined. Okay, so business started in 2002, Matt joined in 2007, and he became a full-time worker. Perfect. The kids, Jack and Diane, both started school, and later that year in 2013, Linda was able to join as a full-time business administrator. Perfect. Following year, they started to look for a part-time employee and found Jeff. So Jeff's been with the business as a full-time part-timer since 2014. Fantastic. And by the looks of it, it's actually meant that they've had 2 effective teams, so they've been able to double their capacity. So that's a great decision to bring Jeff into the business as a part-timer. And what else has changed? Oh, they've taken on their first apprentice. Okay, so that's young Ron Scott, and that was 2 years ago. So I can see from that progression in employees and changes of directions, it looks like Steve is now looking for alternative business directions and opening his business to new opportunities. So that's great. So with that information there, I can see that the business is trading well. It's been growing steadily for the last 5 to 6 years. So the business is doing really well. Well done. Not a bad client. Wouldn't we all wish to have Steve and his product with our companies? Okay, the trust, Polton's Family Discretionary Trust, and that was formed in 2010. Okay, perfect sense. So the father, which is Lawrence, that's Steve's dad. Great, so they've had great direction. So the trust was created with long-term retirement, asset protection and succession planning in place, and also creating that separate company entity as a trustee. Okay. So that means that Steve is the guarantor, the separate company entity, which is Polton Group Pty Limited. I'm pretty sure that should actually be Polton Group Limited. Only human, missed that bit. So Polton Group Limited is the trustee, and we've got the kids, Jack, and that should also be Diane. Paula, you've missed that again. So Jack and Diane, 15 and 13, they are the beneficiaries. Looking into the trust itself, okay, So income, investments and interest earned. Okay, let's read a bit about that. So the trust started in 2010 and it started with a $35,000 investment. Okay, so they popped it into an investment fund. Perfect. They also had 2 gifts. So they had a $10,000 gift from one set of grandparents and a $10,000 gift from the other set of grandparents. So they've kicked off the family trust with an investment of $35,000, 2 gifts of $20,000 and 1 motor vehicle. Across the time, so they purchased their second motor vehicle in 2015, and then they purchased their third motor vehicle in 2019. Great. So they've got 3 motor vehicles and investment savings and gift savings that are accruing interest. Perfect. Liabilities. So the last motor vehicle that they purchased in 2019, it's not fully paid off yet, so they have that as a liability. And their expenses around seeking investment advice and motor vehicle running costs. Okay, not bad. In this particular scenario, having Steve as a guarantor, yep, certainly going to be looked upon favourably by lenders, making sure that they can then connect Steve through to the company itself. So that's Polton Roofing Services. So yeah, okay, so that's some great history about the Family Discretionary Trust, when it was created, what was the plan, who are the parties, and what income, assets, liabilities and expenses they have. Okay. And the last part that we're going to check out, which is the case study itself, is the investment purchase that they are going for. So the Polton Family Trust is looking to purchase their first investment property in 2020. Okay, so they have identified a property at 58 Coral Drive in Hampton Park. I mean, it's not something they've driven past and noticed and thought, oh, they've done a little bit of research on it. Sale price, okay, $450K. They have renters in there, which I mentioned before. So the property has got renters in there. It's earning $550 per week. Okay, so they've made a commitment by depositing $1,000 pending formal exchange. Great. Let's have a look at the type of loan that they'll be looking at to make the best choices for them. So they're looking at a 3-year fixed rate loan, interest only, split options. They're going to look to, so the lending amount or the loan amount is $315K. So LVR is 70%, that's a good position. So the split would show as investment loan 1, $315. That would probably be on the variable or the fixed. And the investment that split, the $160, would be on the variable. Total $475. Okay, great. So we're looking at a new rental income, broken down to $550 per week. Outgoings, $542 per month. So there's a net surplus of about $1,800. So in the background, Steve and Linda have reached out to their accountant, that's Steve's dad, Lawrence, and they've talked about this property and its potential earnings. And Lawrence, the accountant, has checked the figures. It's a great asset acquisition plan, and here's an opportunity to really focus on building wealth for retirement. And key is that the rental property is going to cover the repayments of the loan itself. So from the accountant's point of view, we have got all ticks. So that's the scenario, folks. We've met the Polton family. Let me go back to the Polton family here. So we've got the Polton family. So let's go over what we have. So the Polton family, Steve, Linda, 2 kids, Jack and Diane. It's a family affair with mum. Linda's mum is the secretary. Steve's dad is the accountant. Their family ledger's looking pretty realistic and pretty healthy. They're both earning good incomes. Their assets and liabilities and expenses are realistic. They've also noted down that there are potentially new expenses coming through in the way of rates and water. The briefing services business itself is doing really well. We've got Steve and Linda as both the directors and the shareholders, and we've got 3 employees. Matt, who's a full-timer, Jeff, who's a part-timer, and Ron, who's an apprentice. So business is doing really well. The family trust itself, long-term plan is for retirement, asset protection, and succession planning. And we've got the guarantor. We have created a separate company entity as the trustee. That's the Polton Group Limited. Beneficiaries are Jack and Diane. And we've got a good start for their business, or good start for the trust 10 years ago, with that investment and gifts from both sets of grandparents. Finally, we found a property that is going to work out with the rental property itself is going to cover the repayments. So that's the Polton family scenario, folks. And that signals perfect time to have a break. We are on track and on time, folks. There is a lot of information that you've just had. So we're going to have a good 5-minute break. When we come back, we're going to start entering in the parties for this particular application. So have a 5-minute break, folks. By my clock, I can see that it is 10 minutes past 1. We will restart the webinar at 15 minutes past 1. Thank you, folks. Have a break. Go. Have a break. Paula, what's going on? Come on. Welcome back, folks, to the Create Applications for Trust webinar. Some great questions coming through during the break time. A couple of highlights from the 30% of our experienced trust people online. Just pointing to some of the figures not matching up. I will wear that, folks, quite happily. So I think my LVR should be 60% instead of 70%. And I think I've also pulled myself up for the Polton Group Limited as trustee and for Jack and Diane, the 2 children. So certainly I will wear that, and my apologies, folks. Do not let that detract from your learning today, folks. So the intention of today's session is to help you through the process of creating a trust application. If in fact the figures don't quite match, that's totally fine. Focusing on getting a trust application through Podium, it's really important to understand the steps in creating the relationships correctly in the system, so then you can push it through to your lender with as little need for follow-up or action. So let's kick on, folks. Now, we're up to the stage of creating a residential application for the Polton Family Trust. So just let's refresh our minds of what the application, what the Polton family actually looks like. So we have Steve and Linda Polton, 2 children, Jack and Diane. Steve is a roofing specialist. Now, he started a business called Polton Roofing Services in 2002. Our business has been steady, it's been stable, and it has grown over the years. We've started with full-time employee Matt, then into a part-time employee Jeff, and then just recently in the last 12 to 18 months, we have an apprentice Ron. So the business is doing really well. The family trust itself, not long after the kids started, Jack and Diane started at school, some great advice from the family accountant, who also happens to be Steve's dad, Lawrence, suggested creating a family trust. Now, the Polton Family Trust was created in 2010, and it, in the parties concerned, so we have Steve as the guarantor. We have the Polton Group Limited as the trustee. It is a company entity, folks, and it is different to Polton Roofing Services. And the beneficiaries of the Polton Family Trust are Jack and Diane. Recently, the family has become interested in taking more assertive action with regards to their action plan for retirement planning, asset protection, succession planning for the family. So they have actually found a property which is crunching all the numbers in a beautiful way. Essentially, the property shows that the rental amounts, or the rental income, will actually cover the repayments of the loan itself. So it's looking very positive, and certainly looking to progress that into an actual asset for the family trust. Okay, so that's a brief refresh of what the Polton scenario looks like. Couple of things from me, folks. So again, this is a session about learning how to process a trust application in Podium. It's not a compliance webinar. I will leave the compliance part to my colleagues, the broker advice consultants. That's the number one disclaimer. Number two disclaimer, folks. So when we look at Steve and all of his associated business, we recognise that Steve is not actually walking in the door with just a residential application. He's walking in the door with his business, his trust, and then the residential application. So it's all connected to him. As a part of today's webinar, we want to capture all of that data because Podium can take it. So we can actually have the data in our system if in fact it allows for future business with Steve, his business, his trust in the future for different types of applications that we don't currently have. The data is stored in Podium and good to go. So we're going for a very big picture view of what the data is coming in. Along with that is the caveat that you have already obtained all of the consents. You've sent out your credit guide, your privacy statement, you've had conversations, you've met face to face, you've got consent to use the names of the employees, you've obtained all of that already. Now, if in fact I did attempt to try and show you all of that in a webinar, folks, it would probably be a 24-hour webinar and not a 2-hour webinar. So that is also the second disclaimer that I'll give when I am creating this trust application. The final part is it's probably a pointer from me in how I approached and how I processed this application, is that because I want to include in my database relationships such as Lawrence the accountant, Megan the company secretary, the employees Matt, Jeff and Ron, I've actually devised a strategy where I can get all of my data into my system with the least amount of having to double back and create something. Let me show you what I mean, folks, and let's kick off with the Polton Family Trust. Now, how we're going to attack this, folks, is that we're going to use these 6 steps to creating a trust in Podium. As you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got creating the parties as step number 1, right down to step number 6, which is confirming trustee. Now, the majority of work comes in the very first step, so there's work to do. Now, the standard trust application is an example that every member is a PAYG earner. So the guarantor is PAYG individual, the trustee is PAYG individual, and the trust is a standard trust, discretionary family trust. When it comes to the Polton family, we actually want to highlight and actually capture all of that information that pertains to the Polton Roofing services business. So this is Steve's business. We want to create a company record for Polton Roofing Services. We want to connect all the parties related to that because Steve has walked in with these multiple hats. So that is what we're going to do today. So what we're going to do is we are going to do the Polton Roofing Service Company record first. That's above and beyond standard. We're also going to do all the account connections. That is the second piece that is above and beyond standard. And the twist with our particular scenario today is that the trustee is a company as well. So the trustee is the Polton Group Limited. Okay, let's jump into the live demonstration, and we're going to start with the Polton Roofing Services Company client record. Okay, let me just get rid of my tabs there, folks. You do not need to see that. Much better. Okay, so here I am on the home page of my Podium training login. Again, disclaimer, folks, so regardless if you're with Fast Choice or Plan, you will have the same functionality. So I want to create a record for the Polton Roofing Services Company, and I want to connect everyone. Now, in order to have my connections, I first need to start with the client record. So I go to client on the left-hand side. To create the new record for the company, I would click on new. I would select company, and then I would click on next. I would then complete all of the mandatory fields, which are the red star fields here. Client name, Polton Roofing Services. Trading name, Polton Roofing Services Proprietary Limited, Pty Ltd. The type, Pty Ltd. ABN number. Down to a good description. My description would be pretty simple, folks. Polton Roofing Services created 2002, roofing specialist business in Berwick. Directors are Linda and Steve Polton. Beneficiaries are Steve and Linda Polton. Additional company information, I would have 2 directors. Company description is local public enterprise, registered in 2002. The date, it's different to the state. Registered in Victoria. Registration date, 2002. Total number of employees, 3. Once I'm satisfied with my entry, folks, I would click the Save button. Now, I've already created the record, so I have done a little bit of work beforehand. So let's open up the Polton Roofing Services record to start with. Now, going down the Details tab of this record, I can see, yep, there's my phone number, Polton Roofing Proprietary Limited. I've entered an email address. Down to my description, Polton Roofing Services, directors, shareholders, number of directors, 2, registered in Vic, the date, number of employees. So this is a record that I've already created. So that's the first part. The second part is that I want to connect everyone who has a part to play in this business. So I need to create contact records. I then go to the More tab on the left-hand side, scroll up to Contacts. Once again, you can see that I have these names looking a little bit familiar. Folks, I've already created the contact records. If I wanted to create the contact record for Matt, who's the full-timer for Polton Roofing Services, I would scroll across to New. I would enter Matt's details. Matt Dawson, the client name is Polton Roofing Services because I need to connect Matt to this business. So we need to have a client record, so that's Polton Roofing Services, to be able to create the contact. Excuse me, I'm getting my contacts and clients all muddled there. So basics. If you wish to create a contact record in Podium, which is a non-borrowing entity, you must have a client that you can connect them to. Scrolling down the fields, I complete the information that I have. I've already obtained consent for these things. In my description, going down a little bit further, I would have something along the lines of Matters the full-time roofer for Polton Roofing Services. Once I am satisfied with my entry, I would click Save. So let's have a look at Matt's record. Now we will see that I've included Matt's mobile number. He's connected to Polton Roofing Services. We have a mobile number there. Description, Matters full-time roofer with Polton Roofing Services from 2007. Fantastic. So once you have entered all of your contacts, and I've already done that. So in your real life scenario, if you're going to create a company record and you're going to connect, you must start with the company first as a client and then complete new entries for your contacts. Now, to connect them to the business itself, go back to the client record for Polton Roofing Services. Click on the related tab here. And you connect everyone to the business, folks, by clicking on the employees button. Now, it's the first button that appears underneath a related tab. And you can see here that I have already connected Steve as a director, Megan as a company secretary, Jeff, Ron, and Matt, who are employees to the business. So I'll just give a demonstration there very quickly. So to connect someone, they first have to be a contact. So I will go for Steve. If I wanted to create a new record for Linda, I could. I then select the role type, and here we have director. Once I'm satisfied, if I have more employees to add, I would click Save Anew. For this instance, I'm just going to click Cancel because I've already created the relationship. Now, this page will look familiar to you folks. So this is the data entry part of a record. Now, in here, I have already entered details for the company's income, their assets and liabilities. I did not go into great depth about these details in the scenario that I laid out in part 1 of this webinar, but it's standard data entry, folks. So when you need to add an income for the company, you would be using income tax returns. You would enter your company profit before tax, depreciation, tax itself. If you have more than one source, click Save Anew, otherwise click Save. I'll open up the record itself and show you what I've already entered. So the profit before tax, 103, add back 7,000 tax. Same process for assets and liabilities and expenses of the business, folks. You would enter the details and follow the instructions on the screen. So standard data entry kind of stuff. Okay, so that's creating the Polton Roofing Services company client record, connecting all of the employees, but I'm missing Lawrence. Lawrence is the accountant. Okay, now for Lawrence, we've actually popped him into the accountants connection group. Let me show you where. So we've created an account connection for accountants. So this is a separate client record. Now, an account connection, folks, is designed to collect everyone of the same group. In my description, this account connection is to record. This account connection record is used to link all account contacts added to the database. So Lawrence may be one of 30 accountants that I have in my database, so they're all linked to the same group. When I go to Lawrence's contact record, because he's a non-borrowing entity, I will see here Lawrence Polton, and the group that he's connected to, or the client that he is connected to, is accountants. Okay, so that are all of the members of the Polton family, Polton Roofing Services group. Let me jump back into the PowerPoint here, folks. So that ticks off the middle section here, the Polton scenario difference. We've created the Polton Roofing Services Company record, and we've also noted all of the connections. So let's create the guarantor, trustee, and trust for the Polton Family Trust itself. So the guarantor for the trust is Steve Polton. Now, I have already created Steve's client record here. So I'm just going to open up Steve's client record here. This is something I did earlier. Excuse me. Now, in the creation of Steve as a client, I've included his birth date, his mobile phone number, email address, and the description, folks. The description is pretty important and helpful to you when you are identifying parties of a trust. So in my description here, I have Steve Polton as a guarantor for the Polton Family Trust, the Polton Group Limited as trustee for the Polton Family Trust. So this is the loan purpose, purchase investment, loan amount, $315K, and a date and the name of the application. So a really good part, or a really good example of information you would want to include in the description. I was then satisfied with all that I had entered. Now, as the guarantor, we also require income details. Into the related tab we go, and I have already completed data entry for Steve. So I have his identification, his income details, as we highlighted in one of the first slides in the first part of the webinar. Excuse me. So gross salary, the assets, you can see here we've got them all from what we discussed earlier. Just want to highlight two, folks. So let's use super as an example. Now Steve shares most of his assets with his wife Linda, just making sure that the ownership percentile is correct. So for super, this is all of Steve's own super, so it's 100% ownership, as opposed to other assets that they share together. So home contents is a 50-50 split. Let's just make sure that we've got the 50-50 split at the bottom. Perfect, 50. So we've entered all of the income, assets and liabilities and expenses. So it's step number one, creating the guarantor client record. The second party there is the trustee record. So now we have to create a trustee record. Excuse me. So we go back to the clients tab on the left-hand side. Now the trustee is the Polton Group Limited. So let's go across and create a brand new record for that client. Click on the new button. The entity is company. Click next. Client name, Polton Group Limited. Trading as Polton Group Limited. Type, limited. Company email, Poltons at Polton Group Limited. Polton Group Limited.com.au. ABN number, ACN number, client status. So you're completing the fields which you have. In my description, as a minimum, I will enter trustee for the Polton Family Trust. And just like in Steve, who is the guarantor, I'm going to put Polton Group Limited as trustee for Polton Family Trust. It's a purchase investment, which is the purpose, the amount 315K, and the date 22nd of April 2020. Number of directors 1. Company description, non-profit, registered in Victoria. Registration date is 2010. From memory, I think it's the 4th of April. Apologies if I've got that date different to an earlier screen. Number of employees, just the 1. I'm now satisfied and happy with the creation of my trustee record. I then click Save. Now, like the other 2 examples, folks, I'm now at the stage where I would enter the income, assets, liabilities of the trust, of the trustee. So you do that by clicking on the Related tab. So you can complete that. Now, the 3rd step that we have back in our PowerPoint, so we've done 2. We've done the guarantor, Steve. We've done the trustee, Polton Group Limited. That was the entry that we've just completed. Final step here is to create the trust record. So back to the client screen, left-hand side, client's record, scrolling across to new. And the record that I'm creating is for the trust. And it is the Polton Family Trust. Country established is in Australia. And the trustee is Polton Group Limited. Okay. Trust type. It is a discretionary. Maybe a number. Registration date. 2010. So all of these fields, folks, you can complete at your own discretion. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the page here, and you can see you can also add in details about the trust if you wish to. Once you are satisfied with your entry, you will click Save. Now, just like the other records, folks, I now have the opportunity to enter data about the trust itself. I do that by clicking on the Related tab. Great. So let's pop back into the PowerPoint presentation. So step 1, creating the parties. We have created Steve as the guarantor, Steve as an individual. We have created the Polton Group Limited as the trustee, which is a company record client. We have created the Polton Family Trust. Step number 2 is to complete the data entry in the trust client record. So that's where we were. So let's jump back into that record here. So under Related of the Family Trust, I can enter an income. Now I would use my income tax returns from the trust to complete this area, folks, if I have any. That was another good point that was highlighted by our 30% online who have worked with trust applications before. There's a great majority of trusts who don't have an earning capacity and don't actually have a tax return. For the Polton Family Trust, because it's been operating for nearly 10 years and it's had a little investment fund and a savings fund that has been sitting and accruing interest, it may be required to file a tax return. Maybe, maybe not. If you do need to, then you can use that data to complete this section here. Assets. We've also highlighted that the trust has motor vehicles. So we could enter as an example, a motor vehicle is a new asset. Asset name could be work van 1. Vehicle type, we'll give it a value, we'll say 19,000. So you can complete as much details here as you wish. The trust owns 100% of the asset. If I want to add more or need to add more, I would click Save and New. When I'm satisfied, I would click Save. Same with liabilities and expenses, folks. If the liabilities of the trust, expenses of the trust. Also another good question about whether or not you could include expenses for the children in the trust. Absolutely. So you could include them as an expense. It depends. So there are, depending on the structure of your trust, there may be a variation of liabilities and assets and expenses. So that's part number 2, which is entering, data entry for the trust. Okay, step number 3, connecting the beneficiaries. Going back to our relationship chart. So we created a relationship chart at the very beginning for the A family trust structure. So for our scenario, we could use the Polton family trust relationship chart. Let's go back into the live demo and let's connect our beneficiaries to start with. Now we connect our beneficiaries by scrolling down to relationships. Now Podium is already, or the system has already connected the trustee. Fantastic. We need to add the beneficiaries, Jack and Diane. We click on New Relationship, the client type. Now because both Jack and Diane are non-borrowing entities, we're going to create them as contacts. The role type is beneficiary. Now, we're going to create a new contact record. First name Jack, surname Polton. We'll give you a mobile phone number and click Save. Wonderful. A reminder, folks, there that when creating a contact record, you must first have a client record to connect them to. Now, I already have Steve, and I already have the Polton Family Trust. So the Polton Family Trust is the client record that I'm going to connect Jack to. Let's do the same for Diane. So save and new. I need to create a beneficiary record. The contact is contact. Yep, client type. New contact, Diane. Diane Polton. I'll give you a phone number as well, Diane. And click Save. That's contact done. Need to connect you to the trust. And click Save again. So now I should have 2 beneficiaries showing in relationships. And there we go, Jack and Diane. That is step number 3, folks. Step number 4, creating a residential application in the trust client record. We are in the right place, folks. We are still in the family trust client record. Scroll down to applications and create a new application. Residential loan. Good naming conventions, folks, when using and creating trust applications. So it is the Polton Group Limited as trustee for Polton Family Trust. It's a purchase investment. As a minimum, I'm showing you what I would use as a minimum. As trustee for Polton Family Trust, purchase investment. So that's a loan purpose, the amount, and the date, 22nd of April 2020. Perfect. Client name is already created, primary purpose, investment, status, discovery, settlement date. Now it's a trust application, so we'll need a little bit of time. I'm going to give it 6 weeks, 30th of May, around about the 12th of June. I would complete all of the sections, which I have, Now, this is as per your business model. I highly recommend, again, that the description for a trust application be nice and clear. So we have the Polton Family Trust. We have guarantor. Sorry, folks, my typing is terrible. Guarantor, Steve Polton. Trustee, Polton Group Limited. Beneficiaries, Jack Polton and Diane Polton. Again, loan purpose, loan amount, and the date as a minimum. You can certainly choose to add more or less as per your business model, folks. I then complete the fields. Once I'm satisfied with my entry, I would click on the Save button. So the application record is going to appear right here as we are still in the trust client record, the family trusts record. So that is completion of step number 4. So we've created the residential application. So now we're going to add the guarantor to the application back into the application itself. So we need to move, folks, from the client record here in the top left-hand corner to the application record. Now I can do that by clicking on my blue hyperlink here. And you'll know that you've moved when the top left-hand corner reads with a yellow box, application. Now to connect my guarantor, I need to click on the Related tab. And I will add my guarantor under the Borrower Connections section. Excuse me, so you can see here we have the trust and we have the trustee. I'm now going to add the guarantor. I click on the new Borrower Connection button. Connection type, I want to change from borrower to guarantor. Now my guarantor is Steve Polton. Then I click Save. Face-to-face identity check completed, yes. Then I would click Save. Now my guarantor is now going to appear in the Borrower Connection section of my application. Now the final step in creating a trust application in Podium is to confirm that the trustee has got the Act on Behalf box already ticked. So we do that, folks, by identifying the trustee, which is the Polton Group Limited. I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow and select Edit. Now, 3/4 of the way down this particular window, folks, I'm going to scroll down. There we go. The box has been ticked, acting on behalf of trust. This is a verification that everything is going to go through to your online partner correctly. So this is the final tick. And you are done, folks. So completing the 6 steps for a trust application in Podium are done. Back into the PowerPoint. So we have created the parties, completed data entry, connected the beneficiaries, created the Resi app, connected the guarantor, and we have just confirmed that the Act on Behalf box is ticked. Yay! What happens now, folks, is business as usual. So you would complete your process checklist quick guide, starting with, if you haven't already completed, your client needs analysis, product search simulation, right through to lodgement. So it's business as usual. Okay, folks, that was another big chunk of information. So we're going to have a little breather. We've only got about 5 to 10 minutes left to go to wrap up the session today. So let's take a 2-minute break. Let's grab some water, stand up, move around a little, and then we will finish this off. Back in a tick, folks. Welcome back, folks, to the Create Applications for Trust webinar. Here we are in the third and final part of our webinar today. So let's wrap it up. Starting with trust application support. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to go over some of the material that we've already covered today, starting with Podium Knowledge Hub. So in the first part of our webinar, we actually went in and I showed you how to find articles, resources on trust applications. Now, if in fact you go to the search bar here in Podium Knowledge Hub and type in the words trusts and steps, you will get a list of the 6 steps that we've covered today. So how to set up a trust, step 1 right through to step number 6. So that's the first resource, along with a lot of other material on there as well, folks. So Podium Knowledge Hub is definitely your first port of call and available to you 24 hours a day. Now, the second resource that we talked about in today's session is about connecting, reaching out, well, probably first identifying who is the BDM and then reaching out to them. And in the meantime, creating a handy list for yourself. So this is the part where we went into My Lender Contacts and you are able to create your own customized list. The next and final resource that I want to call out, folks, is about WalkMe. Also highlighted this. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner of Podium is a little button called Walk Me Through. If you go through to the guided experiences and scroll right down to the bottom, you will see the same 6 steps for creating a trust application. So just calling out and just refreshing our memories of what Podium resources we have available. Of course, you always have that human contact as well, folks. If you need to reach out, Podium support is currently available by podium.support@podium.net.au. And we are currently in a pretty interesting environment, folks, where we don't have phone contact at the moment. And we're looking to alleviate that in the upcoming weeks. And the next time, please contact us by email. I'm certainly reaching out to your partnership managers. As always, the Podium training team, the mighty team of 3, podium.training@podium.net.au. So that's the best way to contact us directly as well. Wrapping up, folks. So yeah, big day. We've had a good amount of information about trust applications, starting with before you start. Our structure, really important to capture, and I forgot to add it. I'm going to jump back into the live demo and do that right now. Okay, so in the Polton Family Trust record, folks, what I'm doing now is I'm actually going to add the relationship chart that we created at the very beginning to the trust record. So I click on the related tab of the trust record. I scroll down to Files. And I want to upload. My relationship chart. I click on Upload Files. Now it should be sitting on my desktop. Where are you? Oh, have I put it on my folder? Quite possibly. There we go. There we go. A family trust structure. Yes. Great. Okay, so that is the relationship chart that we created in the very first part of our webinar today, folks. So I've now uploaded it to my trust record. So structure, yes, very important. Relationship charts, they work, they're helpful. Second part there, verification, knowing your verifications. Verification documents for a trust can be as simple as peas or as complicated as trying to create a marinade. That's a very wide variation, but knowing your verifications is really important, folks. If you're going to be including other than PAYG entities, the complexity increases. If you're going to be using proposed or actual rental income, the verification increases. So just make sure that you're across what you need to provide, which works so nicely with product and expertise. In the product section, Gave you some tips on how to narrow your searches by creating a favorite search in product search itself, and then also going into the details of the product itself. So we looked in features and benefits, and we found that for the ANZ product, the lender would like to vet the trust applications themselves or have a vetting process. So just by selecting the product and product search without actually looking behind the scenes and getting a bit of in-depth knowledge, you wouldn't know that. We also highlighted that in some references, it's best to refer to the BDM. So that's where the expertise comes into play. And that's when we created your lender contacts, in particular, my ANZ BDM list. Second part of today's webinar was about creating the trust application record itself, right up to the process checklist stage. So that's creating your client needs analysis, product search, simulation and comparison. So as an extra and as a part of creating a thorough and quality database, we also showed how to create a company record, make all of those account connections to include members of your staff, secretary, accountant, directors, employees. So that's a part of great database management and a full record ready for business. Final part, folks, is about support. Where do you go from here? Walk Me in the bottom left-hand corner of your Podium portal page, Podium Knowledge Hub, great articles, your Business Development Manager, that's your BDM through your lenders, and of course your own partnership managers. What's going to happen next, folks, is that I'm going to send you a copy of the slides that I have used today. In my email, I will also include your CPD points information. I will also include a link to this recording, and based on the questions that I have, looks like I'm going to have a one-pager of frequently asked questions, so you'll also receive that as well. Really important to know your communication channels for support and feedback, folks, even more so for trust applications. Yeah, know your stuff. Know a little bit about who you can reach out to for help. And definitely getting familiar with your Podium resources. As a Podium trainer, I'm always going to say refer to the resources, Podium Knowledge Hub, Walk Me. More than likely, the information will be there. Okay, folks, so it's been a great session. A great topic and a wonderful opportunity to introduce trust applications to you through Podium. Thank you so much for your time today, folks, and thank you so much for your interaction. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.